So I think the first thing I want to do is I think everybody has probably heard enough of me today. I've talked in every session. But if you didn't see me before, my name is Jeffrey Brown. I'm the Vice President of Development and Marketing for Partnership Against Domestic Violence. I want to open up the floor and the space for Ms. Jennifer and Ms. Ebony to introduce themselves. And then when Dr. Granger joins, we will open we'll take a pause and let Dr. Granger introduce themselves as well. So hey, Miss Ebony, jump on in, man. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, everybody. So again, my name is Ebony Russell, and I am the underserved advocate at Partnership Against Domestic Violence. I provide services to survivors of domestic violence, basically the underserved community, which includes male survivors, people with disability, the LGBTQ community, and people who are undocumented. So that's what I do.
Miss Jennifer, your turn, man. Tell us. So obviously, hold on. You work for Georgia Tech. I just saw that. So it's football's back, so I got to kind of get that going. But Miss Jennifer, man, you work for Georgia. A little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my title is Voice Advocate at Georgia Tech. Voice is the office that I work in. We're part of a larger office called Health Initiatives that does work around our campus. But specifically in Voice, we address sexual violence, which is an umbrella term that we use on our campus to include dating violence, along with domestic violence, other forms of intimate partner violence, stalking, sexual harassment, sexual assault, all of those issues. And so we do kind of two primary functions that regard. We provide prevention education around our whole campus community around these issues. And then my primary function is to serve as direct support to any student who has experienced any form of sexual violence. And so I serve as an advocate for those individuals, helping them navigate their options, helping them access resources on and off campus, and really just kind of problem solving whatever survivors need in the aftermath of those issues.
Awesome. Thank you. And I've already had to scold Miss Shamika in the comment section for saying go to Tech. But this is all in fun and all in love. I think Dr. Granger just joined us. So as soon as he pops his video back on, I'll have him. There he is. Dr. Granger, welcome to the team, brother. We appreciate you for joining us today. We have not done much. The only thing we've done thus far is just really open the floor to you guys and just tell us who you are, what you do, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. And I'm not sure why my video is doing this. I'm sorry, guys.
It's probably because it's no problem. It's just you're overdressed for Saturday.
Okay, my apologies. But just to tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll continue to work on this. I know we have young people looking at me crazy. So excuse that. All right, so I'm Maurice Granger. I am the coordinator of student discipline for Atlanta Public Schools. And the scope of my duties is to ensure that all of our students and staff, that we are part of a school district that is safe and conducive to learning. So a part of that is to ensure that our students follow our code of conduct. We have violations that are in the code of conduct, and students who violate the code of conduct, they are able to be provided discipline, right? And there's a wide range of discipline that can be imposed depending on the violation infraction. However, a part of that, we must ensure that all of our students are given their legal right to due process, which is very important. And we let students know you have the legal right to due process, meaning before we impose any form of discipline, we must, by law, provide you the opportunity to speak. We must provide you the gift of a thorough investigation. All of these things we must do prior to saying that you are indeed guilty of the charge and that a violation will occur. And I'm also the coordinator of Title IX, which we will talk a little more about Title IX a little bit later in this discussion, but that's just to give you a broad scope of my duties as coordinator of discipline. And we focus on a progressive discipline model. And part of that progressive discipline model is to ensure that we provide students the opportunity to learn from their behaviors, to restore order and repair harm, which is our approach. And so that is giving you a broad scope of the duties.
Man, so I'm already excited just because we have just three guests who kind of represent three different areas. Obviously, Ms. Ebony from the nonprofit side, Maurice, Dr. Granger from the public school side, and then Jennifer from the college side. Jennifer, I want to throw the first question out to you. And guys, and as you watch this today, if there are any questions that you guys have, throw them in the chat. You can start right now. I'm here monitoring and can throw those out to the team as quickly as you guys ask them. But Jennifer, first question to you: kind of what protections do students have against dating violence on college campus?
Yeah, so we've kind of alluded to Title IX. We've kind of thrown this around and introduced this. It's a federal law that says any school that receives federal funds cannot discriminate based on sex. And so that's expanded to include the requirement for schools to address sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking that happen in their communities. So what this means is if a student is abused by a partner, they have certain rights at their school. They have the ability to report administrators, and the school must take measures to protect the survivor, as well as investigate the matter and potentially hold the perpetrator accountable.
Awesome. Does the Title IX change if a student is in K-12 versus higher education? And so maybe that's a kind of a combo question for Jennifer and Mark and Dr. Granger. Kind of as we look at Title IX, is there a difference for your student, Dr. Granger, who's in high school versus Jennifer's student who's a student matriculating through college?
Well, I can speak on the K-12 from the K-12 perspective, and to give it to you shortly. K-12 and higher ed, they all have very similar obligations. We must report, right? We must protect the students, the student who files the complaint and the student who responds to the complaint. It is our duty to protect all students and ensure that we provide them their federal duties. It's federal law for us to provide an immediate and thorough investigation that does not have any deliberate indifference. And we can talk a little more about that. So we want to make sure that they are fair. Our investigation is fair, that students are not in an environment that is where they're subject to any form of sexual harassment, that we do not retaliate. We have to ensure that if there is a report, that there's no retaliation. And that's for K through 12 and higher education, and that we provide all genders, male and female, equal access.
Awesome. Jennifer, is there anything that you want to add on to that from the higher ed perspective? It seems like Dr. Granger hit it out the park there.
Yeah, in essence, exactly what Dr. Granger said. It applies, regardless of which school, age-wise a student is at. There are some sort of procedural differences that happen in an investigation if it's a higher educational institution versus K through 12. For example, in higher ed, there's a requirement for a live hearing where the parties have to be present in front of a panel or a hearing officer and give live testimony and be cross-examined by each other. And my understanding is that in K-12 that doesn't, that's not a requirement. So there are some procedural differences, yes. But overall, any student in any school has the right to report that to their administration and have expectations that their school, take measures to address it.
Awesome. I want to add some framework to this conversation because, and Ebony, I want to ask this question to you. What's the difference in dating violence versus intimate partner violence?
Well, to be honest with you, there's not a big difference between the two. The term dating violence is often used to describe behaviors similar to domestic violence. Often dating violence is referred to preteen or a teen relationship instead of domestic violence, since those relationships are often do not include living together. So sometimes the term dating violence is used to minimize the experience of youth, suggesting that it's not as dangerous, or serious as domestic violence because it's just dating violence. But that's not the case. You know, all forms of domestic violence can be dangerous and serious for survivors and the family. And so the definition of dating violence is a pattern of controlling behaviors that one person uses against another in order to gain or maintain power and control in a relationship. Now, the definition of intimate partner violence, also known as IPV, is a pattern of hurtful behaviors and abusive behaviors used by one partner to control and have power over another intimate partner. So, in that sense, they are one of the same.
Awesome. Thank you, Ebony. And the reason I asked that is because my follow-up question was going to be from Miss Renee. I think this question is really going to be geared towards Dr. Granger. Is what's the difference between positive versus progressive discipline?
Well, progressive discipline is an approach where we really are responsible for teaching appropriate behaviors. It's a non-punitive method that is used to let a student know you may have violated, you may have been charged with an infraction, but research show that when you engage in punitive methodology, that has an effect that is negative to not only the student, but also to the community as a whole. So it is more beneficial, and research support this, for us to come from a more restorative approach with being progressive, understanding that if you did something inappropriate, that you could, write a letter. We can do some reflections. We can do a number of things, community service, a number of things to teach the student that, one, what you did was inappropriate and it was wrong. And the consequence is more meaningful versus just blind punitive consequences. Now, positive discipline, from my understanding, positive discipline is along the same line as progressive discipline, but I don't know if anyone want to give more input on that. But positive and progressive discipline are along the same path.
Awesome. And I guess my follow-up question is really to all three of you guys. And as we think about and look at dating violence, what resources to students at every level, right? So from a K-12 perspective, college perspective, and then Ebony from the community perspective. So Jennifer, I'll jump to you kind of from a college standpoint. What resources are available for those who survivors/victims of domestic or dating violence?
Yeah, it really is going to vary school to school. Although there's Title IX guidelines for how schools are supposed to address sexual violence, there's not a specific requirement of exactly which services they must provide. And so that is going to look different. I would say a lot of particularly larger schools like Georgia Tech do have services like what Voice provides. So dedicated advocates who serve in this capacity. Some schools, however, may have more of a agreement with a community agency. So some schools may not have advocates on their campus that are providing direct support, but maybe they work with an organization like PADV to ensure that continuity of care. And sometimes there aren't dedicated professionals doing the work like I am at Tech. Sometimes it's more kind of disjointed in different offices, like you might have a dean of students office and a counseling center and a health center that are able to provide various services. But generally speaking, college campuses are going to be very well resourced. Kind of one of the privileges that folks have being in college is usually there are access to lots of different services. So that's the good news about folks who experience dating violence in college, is that there are often places to go, places to seek support, and ways to get help and hopefully get out of that abusive dynamic.
And I do want to go just chime in on that a little bit from the K through 12 as well. Yeah. We have to provide, again, according to the law, the way it's been rewritten, we have to provide supportive measures, which is written throughout Title IX. And supportive measures could be anything from providing counseling support, providing anything to support not only the complainant. Just to let you know, there's new language. So we no longer say victim or alleged perpetrator. It's complainant and a respondent, right? So the complainant and the respondent are both, we must provide supportive measures. It could be a written agreement for them to be separate, but it has to be mutual. We cannot focus on just one. FYI. So if we provide counseling for the complainant, we have to provide counseling to the respondent as well, right? So both parties, and that's what's different with the law now, Title IX, is that we must provide support to both parties so that we are not judging anyone or prejudging anyone prior to the investigation and prior to the final determination of what happened and discipline that may be imposed.
Wow. So actually, and Miss Vera had a question earlier that I think kind of maybe dovetails into that question, Dr. Granger. And so she said she was curious about some statistics from K-12 on this topic. Is there one? She said how many students have this experience and what age groups are most often affected. I guess my question to kind of pull all this together would be. Is the end of that. What age groups are we seeing primarily affected by the dating violence conversation?
Well, the dynamic nationally, of course, is primarily in high school. Right. The exact statistics I don't have right now, but just to be clear, I tell people elementary. You have situations in elementary, little boyfriends and girlfriends, because children some may come from more of an abusive background, an abusive home. This is how they learn to interact with little girls, or this is how they learn to act with little boys. Remember, this is not a situation where females are the only complainants. Males can be complainants as well, and we also have to look at same-sex relationships as well, which is another component, right? So it's across the spectrum. And just to be very transparent, we've had a sexual assault from my experience in elementary with third graders, right? I'm not going to go into detail about it, but again, Title IX, it deals with dating violence, but we have to also talk about sexual harassment, stalking, which is a part of dating violence. That's a big component of Title IX. Students are not allowed to stalk people, not allowed to harass individuals via social media, right? In person. All of those forms of harassment is not allowed through Title IX. So it's a wide spectrum. And high school is definitely where you see more of these cases. And of course, I know Ms. Jennifer, can talk more about the higher ed and higher ed dynamic, which I'm sure you see arguably even more. I don't know the statistics.
Dr. Granger, you just blew my mind. I'm gonna be transparent with you. I fully expected you to say high school, and then when you threw in elementary school, I'm like, I think about it from my son's perspective. He's 7 years old, and I'm like, I would have never thought that I would have had at 7 years old to have this conversation about abuse in a quote unquote relationship with my 7-year-old. So now you've put something on my heart that I have to go and get taken care of. There are a lot of questions coming in. I want to make sure that I at least get to Miss Ebony as well, because there's some questions in the comment section that I want to get answered. Miss Ebony, what resources are available from the community perspective that parents need to know about in terms of dating violence?
At Partnership Against Domestic Violence, we offer workshops through our teen dating violence program. Break the Silence has a great hotline where you can actually text for resources. And then we also have a resource guide that everyone should have access to. And then for people over 18 at our agency, we offer a 24-hour crisis line, emergency shelter, community support groups. We help with getting protective orders. So we have a legal advocacy program. We have a supportive housing program, and then we also offer counseling. And all of our services that we offer are absolutely free. So you can just call our crisis line for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think I'm going to ask Ms. Jennedy, who's monitoring the chat as well, to put the crisis line number in the chat and to kind of pin it so that people can have it. Dr. Granger, you brought up 2 questions ago that because of the changes in Title IX, you went away from abuser you went away from that terminology and you changed to complainant and a respondent. Can you kind of break those down for us and let us know kind of what the main difference is?
Well, when you use the language victim and perpetrator, or even when you say alleged victim and alleged perpetrator, it kind of plant a seed of guilty before innocence. right? And because language is important. So Betsy DeVos and the team, they changed the language. So instead of saying victim, because we don't want to classify anyone as victim. We don't want to classify anyone as a perpetrator or even an alleged perpetrator prior to a thorough and fair investigation. Because the reality is, let's just talk about we're rape, right? We've had situations where individuals were falsely accused of rape. And prior to the current Title IX, there will be discipline. Prior to the investigation, the student will be removed, and I've witnessed it, student immediately removed from school, student being locked up, student being imposed a wide range of discipline prior to the completion of the investigation. That can no longer happen, right? So when there's a complainant files a complaint through myself, the Title IX coordinator, and just so all the young people know, any institution that receives federal funding must follow through with the Title IX regulations, must have a Title IX coordinator involved. And just so you know as well, it doesn't have to happen on campus, on school grounds. It could happen even during extracurricular activities. If the marching band is in Paris and a student is sexually assaulted, Title IX apply. And when you inform anyone, it could be the custodian, it could be the cafeteria, the band director. Even if you don't have access to Maurice Granger, to the coordinator, you don't need access. You can tell any adult, and they're required by law to expedite that complaint and send it up so that we can start the process of investigation. Just FYI. So yeah, so that's why we have the language of complainant and respondent. It's a little more appropriate. It doesn't necessarily say victim versus perpetrator, and allows that space, that safe space for both parties to receive a thorough and fair investigation so that we can see who is indeed guilty and need discipline to be imposed.
I took a lot away from that. Thank you so much, Dr. Granger. One of the things I took away from is that you're sending your APS band kids to Paris. And so I'm going to make sure that my son is in an APS, in whatever school that is, and is in.
And we welcome you.
He gets to high school.
Feel free.
Hey, I do my best, man, because this is such a heavy topic that I want to make sure that we at least bring some smiles to this conversation as well. So you guys feel free to laugh at my bad jokes in the comment section. Jennifer, next question is for you. If you report dating violence in college, do you have to include the
that's
police?
A choice that's entirely in the hands of the person who's experienced the harm. And so on a college campus, a survivor of dating violence can choose to report to the Title IX coordinator for an administrative investigation. They can choose to report to law enforcement for a criminal investigation. They can choose both of those options. They can choose neither. It's one or the other, whatever their choice is. And that's part of what my role is as an advocate, is to help students explore and understand those processes so they can make an informed decision based on their specific circumstances, which reporting avenue, if any, is going to be best for their safety and their healing moving forward.
Thank you so much. I'm just scrolling here, guys. Keep the comments coming, because this is a great.
I do want to speak for K through 12 that we are required.
Yeah, definitely.
And there it is again. I don't know what's going on with it. So
no, keep going, brother. Keep
sorry,
going,
guys.
brother.
I'm old, so forgive that. All right. So with K through 12, yes, we do involve the police immediately. We are required to do so. Our school resource officers, we involve the. It depends on the situation. We may conduct the defects. DFACS is Department of Family and Children Services. If you guys are not aware of that particular service, because it could be a case if a child, let's say, sexually assaults another child, that child could be a victim. The person who is the respondent could be a person who has been sexually assaulted at home. Right. So because we may want to know, why is a 9-year-old trying to sexually assault another 9-year-old? Why is this 12-year-old acting so aggressive sexually? So we immediately alert DFACS, Department of Family and Children, as well, to do their investigation to make sure that everything is okay at home that may have caused that type of behavior. So yes, we do an immediate alert to our administration and to the police and to DFACS to conduct investigation.
This is an amazing conversation, and I want to ask a follow-up to both Jennifer and Dr. Granger, because my assumption is going to be, actually, I won't even go into it, but I wanted to piggyback on that conversation. Dr. Granger, you said you notify the police, you notify DFAC. Do you also then notify the parents? And Jennifer, that same thing to you as well. Do you are the parents notified in that same kind of structure?
Well, I know, Jennifer is dealing with wonderful adults. Well, once they turn 18, they become wonderful adults. I don't have that, right? So absolutely, I must notify parents at the very beginning, starting square one. That is the first step, to notify the parent. We do not that we can't move forward, because we will move forward. We may not be able to get in contact with Miss Ebony, who's the mother, right? But that doesn't stop us from moving forward with our process, because we must protect the child. And both children, yes.
Jennifer?
Yeah, just as Dr. Granger identified, when we're talking about college students, we're primarily talking about 18 and over who are adults and are independent of their parents. And so on a college campus, no, parents are not notified. There are certain privacy restrictions that apply to adults on a college campus to protect that. And that often could be a huge barrier for students. If they know their parents are going to find out about a report, about an incident, they may choose not to move forward. And so we want to eliminate those barriers as much as possible and let them make the choice if they want to inform their parents of the situation and get their help working through the abuse.
And I will say from the K through 12, I will just add in from the K through 12, because we do have students who are 18, 19. We must educate students, depending on their exceptionality. It could be up to the age of 22. Right? Or 23. So once you turn 18 in a K through 12 setting, you have all legal rights to make your own decisions. So in that case, we do not have to alert the parent in that case, because as an 18-year-old, you are legally able to sign all of your school documents at that point, once you turn the age of 18 in the high school setting.
Hey, can we? I know they just put a time check in the comments here, and I can I lightning round some questions with you guys real quick. All right, so Ebony, can you talk about bystander intervention for me real quick?
So I guess you can say my recommendations is for a bystander, make sure your friend or whoever that person is connected to the right resource. Especially if that person is under 18, they definitely need to talk to an adult so they can get connected to the right resource again. But also just be aware of your local resources and don't be afraid to step in. However, when you step in, be very mindful, because you don't want to put your friend or family member in any other situation that may be worse than the situation that they're in now. So again, if the person is under 18, please encourage that person to reach out to an adult and get connected to a DV agency or someone that specializes in, dating violence or domestic violence.
I want to maybe pose that same kind of question to both Dr. Granger and Jennifer. From a reporting aspect, as it relates to your jobs, if a bystander comes to you and says, "I know about a situation," or a friend comes to you and I know about this situation, what's the response you guys have from a K-12 and a college standpoint?
You want to go ahead?
Sure, I can start.
Okay.
So as far as my role as an advocate, providing direct services to survivors, we also provide our same services to folks that are helping a survivor. So we might call them a secondary survivor. And so if somebody comes to us and says, "Hey, my friend is going through this situation, how do I help them?" That's a conversation we'll absolutely have and help them understand how to talk to their friend, how to support their friend, what are the resources, how to get their friend connected, just as Ebony said. From a Title IX standpoint in higher education, yes, third parties can report to Title IX about an incident that they're aware is going on. Generally speaking, though, at least at Georgia Tech, they're going to defer to the survivor's wishes before launching an investigation. They're going to want to make sure the survivor is going to feel safe with whatever proceeds, and they're not going to increase the harm by taking action against that person's wishes.
That's right. And it's similar in the K through 12. A third party can report, but of course we will pull the individual to make sure to conduct the investigation, because we don't know. We don't want to just go by a third party. We want to see what information we can get from the person. Yeah.
That's awesome. And gosh, I hate, like, there's so many more things that are jumping out at me. I wish we had more time. Dr. Granger, I guess the last question for you would be, yes, there are so many things. Kelly had a question in K-12, especially in high school. How are schools held accountable to protect parties of, they said domestic violence, but I'm going to kind of assume maybe Kelly, not necessarily domestic violence, but dating violence. So is the school held accountable to?
We are held accountable by federal
violence?
law, and not just dating violence. Just want to be clear for everyone. Again, it's sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, sexual assault, all of those any form of sexual behavior that is not appropriate, that falls under Title IX, and we're accountable by law. Any school receiving federal funding, yes, school districts can be sued who do not follow Title IX. Funding will be removed from the school district who do not follow Title IX. So again, it is a serious, and the investigation, guys, is I'm still getting, because it's new. Everything is new. It's very thorough. And I know Jennifer can talk more about that. It's very thorough. It's very comprehensive, but it's needed to make sure that we provide appropriate protection to our students, to all students, because you deserve that, and by federal law. So yes, we are held accountable, absolutely. And that's my job as coordinator. I have to make sure I oversee that process to make sure that all steps are being taken to make sure that we are following everyone's rights. Yes.
Perfect. Hey, another one real quick for Jennifer and Maurice
is fine.
Dr. Granger.
Please.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Hey, you got the title, brother. I want to make sure I said it. You worked hard. Hey, so what about digital abuse, right? I mean, because we're talking about dating violence and we're talking about sexual abuse and things of that nature. But does Title IX protect those who may be victims of digital abuse as well?
Okay, I'll jump. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So answer your question. Absolutely, because sexual harassment that can occur through forms of text, and again, we have to do what's within our jurisdiction in our setting. If it happens out in the neighborhood, maybe not necessarily, but if you're uploading during virtual learning, a lot of our schools are in virtual learning. Kids are inboxing sexual pictures and making all of these sexual inappropriate comments. We have adults. Remember, this is not just for students, adults as well. An adult making inappropriate inbox messages to a student, right? Whether it's a teacher or whatever, saying inappropriate things to a student, that falls under Title IX. So yes, it happens in the virtual setting. And so, of course, rape and those things, it may not be sexual assault per se, but sexual harassment can very much so occur via social media.
Mm-hmm. Man. Ms. Jennifer, anything else you'd like to add?
Part of it.
Yeah, nothing to add. Yeah, covered it.
Yeah, you guys have blown my mind today, and I appreciate you guys. My clock says 1:50. And the last thing I want to get is an angry text message from Jenny saying that I ran over my time. So Jennifer, Dr. Granger, Miss Ebony, thank you guys so much. I'm big. Hey, just in the comment section, just throw a couple thank yous in there for Miss Ebony, Miss Dr. Granger, Miss Jennifer. Please, thank you guys so much. This was an awesome presentation. So I think the next thing for everybody is as we close out this session, you guys are just going to go right back to the reception area and join the next session. But again, Miss Jennifer, Miss Ebony, Dr. Granger, thank you guys so much. This is super informative. And
thank you, and keep up the great work. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you guys.